everybody, and welcome to my writing playground. This is episode 11 of Diverse Sci-Fi and Fantasy Stories podcast. I'm your host, author Alicia McCullough. Thanks for tuning in. This podcast is all about me honoring my son's legacy by sharing BIPOC science fiction, fantasy, and horror stories with the world. This is a place where we probe underneath these stories to get into the core message intended by the author or creator, and then listen to the author read their stories in their own words. Today, I have the wonderful opportunity to share something a little different. I'm very excited to be a supporter and to highlight this incredible Kickstarter campaign. But first, let's do some introductions. Okay, everybody, you guys want to tell us a little bit about who you are and share your biography with the listeners?
Like to go first, Leo?
Me? Oh, okay, fine. Yes. My name is Leo, and I am an editor, educator, performer, and I just really love words. Okay. I love my language. And I like to come onto projects, or people ask me all the time how to edit, make things sound a lot better and everything. So I've just been doing that for half a decade. And this will be my first published credit as a writer. I'm co-writer on the Fox Chronicles along with Jeffrey. And I'm excited to be here.
All right now.
Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tony Cade. I'm the owner of Challenges Games and Comics, which is a comic book and gaming store located here in Atlanta, Georgia. I've basically been involved in, I guess, pop culture fandom since like the mid 80s when I started off as a photographer for the Atlanta Fantasy Fair and Dragon Con. Since then, I've gone on to do the Atlanta Sci-Fi and Fantasy Expo, which is a convention here in Atlanta that basically is free to the public. And we usually have about 50 vendors and about 60 hours worth of programming. And also a few years ago, I was one of the founders and editor-in-chief of Terminus Media, which was a combination of a art class and a screenwriters group that used to meet in the gaming area of my shop. And we actually got those two groups together and formed Terminus Media. And they started producing comic books and also producing artwork and stories for different corporations, including the CDC.
Wow. You're impressive, Tony. You do know I love you, right?
He does a lot. He does a lot.
He does, right? Okay. So can someone share the scope of the project as well as the reason and inspiration behind it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, the way the Fox Chronicles started off is that I thought I was pretty much out of the comic book independent publishing business because I was doing the expo and also running the gaming store. But I actually had two artists, Fritz and Powell, who actually contacted me like a week apart. And both of them were saying that they wanted to do stories featuring a character that I created in the past. Mm-hmm. And, I thought it was kind of, weird that both of them would contact me, one's here in Atlanta, the other one's over in the Philippines, that they would both contact me at basically the same time and wanted to do, stories with this character. And so what I proposed to them is that I wanted to do a rebranding of the character and re-envision the character and have more or a different purpose than I originally created. I basically created the character of Autumn Fox to be like a young adult type character that would feature stories that both kids, adolescents, and adults could get into, but would also be socially relevant and tell stories and give information.
And that's where my voice comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the two of you guys, you guys are the team, right? Is there, you
Well,
have
we're a small part of the team.
a
Yeah.
small part of the team. Okay.
Right.
So
All right.
how
actually
did the
brought in.
team come together?
Okay.
What did you decide to do there?
Well, basically, I had a story idea that I wanted to do, and so I plotted out the story.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like producing and writing comic books myself, I consider myself still a rookie. Even when we worked on projects and stuff for the CDC, and I was in a writer's room, I was basically like, the idea guy, and would kind of like, plot out the story, and I turned the rest of it over to like, Peter and John and Robert to flesh everything out. Mm-hmm. So what I basically did was plot out the story of the Adam Fox Chronicles, and then I contacted Robert Jeffrey, who is an award-winning writer. Right now, he's probably writing at least like 6 different indie titles.
Yeah.
Was one of the participants in the DC Writers Workshop. So this is a man who definitely had a lot more experience writing comics than I did. Because, like I said, if I wanted to, do this again, I wanted to make sure that I put my best foot forward. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I contacted Robert. And Robert always, loved the original incarnation of the character. So he was on board about my re-envisionment. Mm-hmm. But I also wanted to make sure that since we were writing a character that was, a woman, that we make sure that we have, the sensibilities, and the problems that women face as part of the story.
Right.
And so that's why I reached out to Leo and asked her to help participate with the story, because I wanted to make sure that we were doing the character with the proper voice and sensitivities of things that Robert and I might overlook.
Yeah, well, better way to do it too.
Yeah, I think
and she did a great job of that.
Awesome. So it sounds like, you kind of got your team together, but can you speak a little bit about how this team brings the vision together? Or like, you kind of spoke a little bit towards it, but what makes each person's unique perspective or insight make it relevant to this project?
Every person that we have on this project is a person of color, and it is also a team that is balanced out with genders and everything. I am non-binary. You also have just like people from across the world. So we're going to bring.
We took care of the Atlantic and the Pacific. We got.
Yes.
You got them all, right? Okay.
Yes, our voice and creative expertise is going to be very diverse in itself, and that is kind of the place that we live, because this is based in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And Atlanta is a very diverse place. Not everybody really knows that, but I grew up around different types of people, and I love that Adam Fox is Korean and Asian and African descent. So like, I grew up with a lot of Asians and Hispanics. Like, I grew up speaking like 3 languages, and I was really excited for this character because right now I am learning Korean, and we did put in a bit of that into the story. Fantastic. Because why not showcase her culture as well as how much of a wonderful character she is in the first place. So yeah, we're just going to put all of our cultures, all of our heads together and what we know about being human into this project. And I think it's going to create something truly just cool and expensive.
Right. I love it. Okay, so at the center or heart of this project, what's the core or the deeper message or theme that you guys like to impart to people who fund you or to the readers?
All right, well, part of this kind of like goes back to when Robert and I were working on our project with the CDC. We learned about the Sabito method, and it actually got us, really involved with the whole thing of edutainment, where you basically create stories where you're passing knowledge on to people, but you're not preaching to them. You know, it's like with the project that we did for the CDC, it was about HIV and AIDS awareness. And we basically, you know, did a mini series that was animated that talked about those things. But when we actually put it in the front of focus groups, we literally had people say, I thought you guys were going to teach us about HIV and AIDS. And we had done such a good job with the drama and intermingling the information with the drama that it went completely over their heads. And they took a test before watching animation, and they took a test after the animation, and it actually showed what knowledge they had actually picked up. And so that's one of the things that we're doing here with the Fox Chronicles, is that there are a lot of social issues that are going on and a lot of different problems all around the world. And so we're going to be touching on those problems, but we're going to be doing it in such a way that it's going to be involved in stories that involve action and drama, you know, and cool fight scenes, you know. So when we speak upon different things, it's actually going to be like part of the story. So we're going to be imparting knowledge, but we're not going to be preaching.
Gotcha. So is there, so like for the first project that people would read, the first comic, for that one, is there like a underlying theme or something?
Absolutely.
Well, we've actually been trying to keep that on the down low.
Well, you do know that's my podcast. I'm trying to dig at it. Who came up with the core theme for this first book? And is it something that they experienced or shared? Like maybe even Leo might want to speak to being a woman. Is there some issue that you feel like women could connect with?
They already brought to me an issue that women can connect with.
Gotcha.
Like they came up with that, and I was like, I can roll with that. I can run with it, like across the world. No, do you want me to say what it is, or like what is it?
Well, one of the first stories, like the first issue is going to be like a 30-page issue. All right. So in the first 30 pages, the reason that we're doing a 30-page issue is to give us a chance to, you know, introduce Amber, give a little bit of origin story, give a little bit of background about her parents and the culture of her parents. And then we go into the storyline that's basically going to be dealing with human trafficking, which is an issue that we we didn't become involved with, but during our work with the CDC, we found out that there were other types of epidemics that had nothing to do with bacteria or viruses that the CDC was dealing with. And we had like no clue. And we had always said that was going to be, you know, if the CDC kept doing these projects, that we definitely wanted to do something about child trafficking, because that's a problem here in the United States and over in Asia.
Yes.
And unfortunately, because Atlanta is a hub for basically everything, also a hub for child trafficking.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is something that was, you know, very important to us that we wanted to touch based on with our first story, since we weren't able to do it with the continued projects that we were doing with the CDC.
So the way that I come into that is because I was born and raised in Atlanta, Grady baby. And yeah, I've seen all of that. And like when you're like super young, like 3 to 7, like you do get to see a lot of that and stuff happening around you, and you don't really know. It's just normal. It becomes very normal. And I think this is really going to humanize what it's like to be a young woman in that city and grow up around all the ideals people put onto you as also as someone who's multiracial. It is very strange to be there, especially in the South, and everybody just assumes a lot of things about you, and your culture kind of gets erased because you are put into a box so hard. Like, yeah, it's very weird, and thankfully I've gotten a lot of exposure to different people, so I didn't get caught up in that box as I would have. Yeah. So very excited to speak on this subject too, because just human trafficking is
it's intense.
It is very intense.
Especially in the African American community, because
yes.
nobody really speaks on it. I mean, it's like girls just go disappearing and they end up in this human trafficking, and it's like it's commonplace or it's normal.
Definitely.
I mean, and we call it human trafficking, but it's like the slave trade never ended, and nobody wants to deal with that, or nobody wants to highlight that. So the fact that you all are kind of taking that on, I think, is extremely powerful. All right. So Tony, did you come up with the human trafficking? Because you talked about it from the CDC. You know, what made you guys go with that for the first one?
Like I said, it was something that I said that we were going to do, and we never got a chance to. And so basically, you know, having this opportunity to re-envision a character and start back telling stories. Because to me, I always think of like stories and fables and everything else. It's, to me, and especially in the beginning, to their core, their survival skills. You know, you're supposed to learn something from stories. You're supposed to be entertained by stories.
Yes.
But you also want to learn something from stories. And I want to be able to tell stories where it's like, okay, this is how you recognize trafficking. Okay, this is how you deal with trafficking. This is who you report trafficking to. This is how you get out of trafficking. You know, I wanted to be able to give information and give knowledge, but still be able to tell an entertaining story. And like I said, you know, nobody likes to be preached to unless you're going to church on Sundays. It's like, you know,
I think the people at church want a story.
And if the preacher is good, it's usually someone who knows how to tell a story.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the best
preachers. Basically, it doesn't matter, you know, which book you worship out of, it's full of stories.
Yeah.
And those stories are in there to teach you.
Yes.
Seriously.
You know? So, you know, even as a creative writer, you know, my thing is it's like, okay, if we're going to tell stories, let's teach. And if I can tell a story where you don't realize you're learning, it's like, remember the old Fat Albert cartoons? You know, hey, you might learn something before it's all done. You know?
Yeah.
You know, the viewpoint and stuff I'm thinking of.
Perfect.
Okay. You know, if I spin out, say, it's like, hey, you know, I'm doing, you know, a comic book about domestic abuse. People be like, man, I want to read that. It's you know, it's one of those things and stuff. But if I give you a gripping story that has that as part of the story, and then you learn something, then you're good to go.
So I love that idea of the gripping story about domestic violence or something, but in a way that's learning and soulful and entertaining. I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So tell me a little bit about Autumn. Autumn, you said Autumn Fox. Who is she and what's at stake for her?
You want to take that one, Leo?
I'll take it, yeah. So she is a young teenage, like brown girl in Atlanta who's growing up and trying to find her bearings. But she's also growing up with this entity, with this person in her head, John. And John found his way to her through her actual genes. He's an alien intelligence, which you'll find out in the book. We do that exposition there. But yeah, John lives with her in her head, has been with her since birth. And if you know anything about, what do you call it? It's kind of like not a mental disorder. We all have intrusive thoughts. Yeah, and some of us have a lot of them. So I would explain Jun at this point in her life as a big intrusive thought. And he expands himself over time because he starts to train her to be a warrior. Mm. And she's got that going for her. She's got this whole warrior spirit, but she's like a normal girl in school in Atlanta, like hanging out, but also training to fight like these big aliens, these wars, and like training to use her powers. And she doesn't even know the beginning of what she can do. And that is something that I think relates to a lot of young women. You don't know the beginning of what you can do. The world never tells you like how incredible you are and like what you can get your hands into. And I think that's going to be really, really great to watch, especially for other young women that are brown, because Tony had this idea because he does have 3 daughters that never got to see comics that, you know, like characters that look like them, and behaved like they do, use the same dialogue, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I definitely wanted to put the culture and the language into the comic book. So it's not just, you know, this perfectly speaking world that's, we need to put actual language that we use in that book and not police it to sound like white man's language.
Yes.
Because we want to dismantle that also.
Yes. You're not looking for you don't want her to be the Supergirl language, right?
No.
I got you.
Like she's educated and everything, but we this is where we live, and these are the people we're around, and this is how we speak here. Right. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to also make sure that it's legible so everybody can read it and really get the idea. So that's another way, because just like we have to figure out how to make our lessons learnable and palatable and just, you know, relatable for everyone, we want the language to do the same thing, but also not deplete it, not take anything away from it.
Right.
So that's Autumn. She's like this kind of stubborn, headstrong girl, but she can get herself into trouble because she is you know, young, and no one really respects teenagers. They don't. No one does, even if they have the greatest ideas. Right. Teenagers are our best protesters, the ones that really get stuff done time and time again throughout history. They have got things done because they are in this weird zone between adolescence and adulthood, and they have a voice and they're willing to put it out there. So I think a teenage Black woman is going to be able to do a lot. We can play with a lot with Autumn. So
perfect. Do you guys want to take some time now to share the screen and show Autumn to the world? Or I know the people who are listening, they won't be able to see, but we can show for the folks on YouTube.
Okay.
Let's see. I didn't prepare any of that though. Let's see.
I have the Kickstarter up on mine. I can share that screen so they can see the panels.
Yeah, go for it.
And I'll also go down and show the artists that are on the project as well.
Yes.
So we have a little video for everyone to play up there. This is one of the cover arts for the Fox Chronicles, and we have some great cover artists. Here's the black and white panels into color. A couple of our covers here.
Yes, beautiful.
Yes.
And she is in action.
She is. Okay. All the things that we get. Here we go. So this is our writer, Robert Jeffrey. It's me.
Yes.
Fitz.
Okay.
Levada O'Neill. She's got some great stuff. All of our art, I can't even begin to explain how excited I am to work with all these talented people. Like I didn't think
Right.
it's my first project, and I'm just like, where have I ended up?
You guys have an incredible team there.
We do, but yeah, we're almost there too, and
Perfect.
You want to show them the different covers real quick?
oh yeah, we did.
What is it? To show who did which ones?
Oh
A little
yes,
bit more. Yeah,
this
this is
one
the
is
print,
by
and this is
Candace
actually a
Hahn.
wraparound cover.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this one is the one by Leveda.
Gotcha.
Yes.
The animation cover.
Here is Marcus Williams.
Mm.
And Sheldon Williams here. I love this one a lot.
That's going to be our full cover.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
All right, that's our things.
So Tony, while she is showing everybody, do you want to tell potential Kickstarter funders about why they should give this project a shot, or why it's important to support a project like this one?
Well, hopefully you want to support it because you like what we're showing you here. Like I said, we're going to give you, quality artwork. We're going to give you a really good story. It's going to be a book that you're going to be able to share. I would definitely, having the stuff you want to share it with your teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to enjoy the stories, reading them as an adult. And it's basically one of those things and stuff is like, we're doing it for a purpose because, we want to teach, and we also want to entertain. And I think we've accomplished both with this project. I think at this point right now, we're a little about 1,000 away from our goal.
Yes.
But we've also got, some really incredible stretch goals. We're going to be adding additional prints and even more story possibly to the story.
So yeah, I was gonna ask. I mean, I didn't look at the extension, but are you guys gonna do web series with Autumn Fox? Because that could be fun. Is that on your list?
About, doing a web series. We're going to have it and stuff where we've already started looking at different outlets for later on, where people can get digital copies of it and be able to do it. But like I said, this is just the first book. We've got many stories that we've actually started plotting and planning out. So, that's one of the reasons we're on Kickstarter, to help give us that kickstart. Usually in non-pandemic times, I probably wouldn't have even went to Kickstarter. When we were doing a lot of our other projects and stuff when I was with Terminus, we basically took the funds from projects that we worked on for different companies and agencies, and then we used those to produce our comic books. But because of the pandemic, we weren't able to do a lot of the contracts that we would usually do. Gotcha. And then here, even in my own business here, the comic shop, we took a serious decrease in revenue because I wasn't able to do tournaments and, a lot of the featured events we usually do. And, we couldn't even do, we usually get like a big bump when we do our expo here in the mall, but we weren't able to do any of that. Gotcha. So this is literally a situation where I'm reaching out to everybody on Kickstarter because I actually do need help, and I need that kickstart to get this project, moving forward and give you multiple stories and multiple things in the future.
Gotcha. All right. So you guys, we talked about it. So where do they just go to Kickstarter? What do they search, or where should they go to be able to support the campaign? And I'm obviously going to put the link on my blog in the end, but maybe you want to tell people where to go.
Yeah, just go to the Kickstarter page, just search the Fox Chronicles. We're definitely going to pop up. If you want to go to my shop's Facebook page, Challenges Games, I've got plenty of links to it there. The Atlanta Sci-Fi and Fantasy Expo sites has links. And if you just basically do a search on Google, for the Fox Chronicles, it'll definitely show up.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to close us out now. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate this fantastic opportunity to share the project. I'd love also to hear if listeners have decided to support this campaign. Feel free to post a comment on my blog or YouTube channel. I'm author Alicia McCullough, and I write Black warrior women in sci-fi, fantasy, and horror for readers who want diverse protagonists and unique storylines. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support me or donate to my Cup of Tea Fund, just head on over to my blog on my website, find this post, and click on the donate button at the bottom. And if you're not one of my subscribers and want to join my League of Heroes, go to www.aliciamccullough.com to sign up for my newsletter to get updates, learn about my latest projects, and purchase my diverse sci-fi and fantasy stories. If you're already one of my subscribers, thank you so much, and please feel free to share this podcast with anyone you think who might enjoy it. Okay, until next time, be a warrior. Show your courage, strength, and bravery. Thanks for listening.